decks at the party. Pauper. I brought Pauper decks at the party.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 23 of the PDH Pod, the one and only Magic the Gathering podcast dedicated to the total exploration of the Pauper Commander format. I'm your host, Brad Drac V, and let's see what my co-bros are up to. That'll be my last bro joke, I promise. First up, Dave the Alcadron Vader. How was your week? We missed you last week.
Yeah, I've had a much better week so far than last week.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, some stuff happened. It was awkward and unpleasant. Took me away from Magic for a little while I dealt with personal stuff, but we're back. We're very happy to be back. Things are looking up, and I am excited to be here.
Excited to talk about some new cards.
I really am. So I for the first time in a couple weeks, I had some free time over the last couple days, and so I sat down with the entire spoiler. The spoiler season has been going on for like a couple weeks now, and the Discords are all like really excited about it. Like there's a spoiler channel in the PDH home-based Discord, and every single day during spoiler season, people are posting new cards and talking about them and comparing them to other cards. There's a ton of activity, and I've just been sort of like ignoring that for the last 3 weeks because I've just been so overwhelmed with other stuff. But yeah, like this past weekend, I just dove headlong into the spoiler. I just set aside like 3 hours when I could just study it card by card, go through it, and like go through it deck by deck even. And I just take each one of my decks and I say which of the new cards are going to go into this deck, which of the new cards go into this other deck. So I had a great time doing it. I think this set's going to be a ton of fun. I'm excited to see what it's about.
Yeah, I think so too. I actually looked at some of your Moxfield decks for inspiration, whatever, new decks for myself, and I saw you already made some changes with the new ones or put them in your sideboard or whatever. So you've definitely been brewing with them already.
Yep. I when new cards keeping like something like 80 some decks like up to date is a huge like logistical headache. So what I do is I go through each deck and I will add, when there's new cards, I'll add them to the sideboard. And then if they're in the sideboard, that to me that means I need to find cuts for these. And I'll go through the electronic lists and I'll look for cuts. And when I find the cuts that I want to make, I'll use Moxfield's categories system, and I'll create a new category called Cut Me. And then I'll just I'll move the cards into the Cut Me. I don't actually change them in the Moxfield list until I physically replaced the cards with the new cards.
Yep.
And that's how I know, like, you know, when I open up a list and I see like Cut Me's and sideboards, I'm like, oh, okay, I still need to acquire those cards. So
yeah, I kind of do the same thing for my Pauper Cube.
Yeah. So if you're looking at my Moxfields list and you're wondering like, why are there 7 cards in a category called Cut Me? What does that mean? Like, that means their sideboard cards are coming in.
Yep, right on. Well, Dave, did you know that we shipped Liam to California this week?
Did know that. I hope that he had a great travel time.
I think so. Sounded like he did anyway. He made it over there in record time.
Good.
Almost instantaneously.
Viva la.
We shipped him out to bring in a very special guest you just heard, all the way from Tennessee. We got Jules from the House of Commons podcast. Welcome to the show, Jules. How's it going?
I'm honored to be here. I really appreciate you adopting me briefly to be your bro. You know,
it might be permanent. You never know.
It's what bros do.
True.
Depending on how we like you compared to Jules or compared to Liam, we'll see how this goes.
Well, I'm already hoping that I can subcontract Liam out because Chev's getting on my nerves recently. So.
Hey, whatever works.
Next time we'll swap Liam for Chev maybe, or maybe swap me for Chev maybe.
Hey.
When
mix and match.
When do we?
We'll get all 5 of us in a room, and it'll just be pure.
We'll just throw microphones around and just see what happens.
Right, like whoever walks out of that room, they were the winners, and they get the new podcast, and whoever stays in the room, right?
Is this a hostile takeover? Are we having a merger?
Might be.
A merger in quotes.
Too real.
Too relevant. Yep, too topical.
But yeah, I'm super hyped to be here. Super hyped to talk about a bunch of cards at the common and uncommon, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Bro's looking pretty cool.
Is looking pretty good. But I think before we get to that, just like all good podcasts, we got to do a little bit of housekeeping. Just want to give a shout out mention of our Patreon account. It's fairly new, but we got some good folks in there. We actually got a new patron this week, Scooby Drew. welcome to the family. Thank you very much for your support. And if you want to be as cool as Scoob, just hit patreon.com/thepdhpod and show us a little bit of love. If you like what we're doing, you want to support the show, that would be amazing. And then we've got some big plans coming up for all our patrons, our big family over there. We're thinking about, which we're probably going to do, is give our patrons access to our PDH Pod Discord. Up until now, it's pretty much just been sort of a catch-all for our shows, our show notes, our private, co-host conversations when we bring guests in, that sort of thing. So, but we're thinking about opening up, half of it or so, some channels for our patrons too, to come in, chat with us, talk about decks, talk about whatever you'd like. So that should be pretty cool. And then while you're at it, if you want to check out our slowly growing YouTube channel, that'd be awesome too. Or just the PDH Pod over there as well. So that's all my housekeeping this week. We get right onto the main topic. Big set review, Brothers War. I was pretty excited about this one. How are you guys feeling about it overall? Like you were saying, Dave, how you sort of missed out on some of the spoilers or didn't check in on them or what have you. That's how I was with the Dominaria United spoilers. Like, they started and then I glanced away and looked back and they were over. Like, I missed most of them, but I've been pretty involved in these. So what do you kind of think as an overall view of them?
Overall, I'm very into this set. I think that it's doing really interesting things both flavorfully and mechanically. Like I was playing a million years ago when Urza and Mishra were like really relevant, so like a lot of the throwbacks, a lot of the callbacks, they're really like they hit the nostalgia buttons for me. A lot of the the unearth is the mechanically perfect for a bunch of archaeologists digging up ancient Thran relics and like trying to get them. I think they've done a much better job of like visually and flavorfully capturing the idea that this was a catastrophic war. Like, you look at cards from antiquities and you're like, the clay statue is just sitting there and you're like, okay, like this was I guess there was a war going on and like it was partly fought by like these slow looking like squishy boys. Like, how cute. Yeah. And then you look at, you're looking at Cityscape Leveler and you're like, oh,
that's what happened.
That 400 foot tall robot just killed 8,000 people. Like, okay, like this was kind of a big deal. Like,
this was actual war,
right? And then you get the Phyrexians involved with like Gix. I think they did a much better job storytelling this war than they did in 1994. Which, I mean, I'm not going to hold that against them. They had no idea what was going on in 94. But like, it's cool that we're going back to it. I think that mechanically it's very good. I think that in terms of power level, I think that it is not particularly high powered, and I think that that's perfect.
Sure, I think that's perfect for a standard set. Absolutely,
right. I think that if we're going to be doing this, a new set comes out every 3 minutes plan that Wizards appears to be on. Like, they can't all be Kamigawas, and like they can't all be these Commanders legends that just completely flip the table on our entire format and change the meta and change everything. Like, when they give us a set and it's just like, there's a couple real juicers in here. Like, if you've got artifact decks, these cards are going to be useful. If you've got graveyard decks, like, you're going to get some unearth toys. You've got a few new really powerful toys to play with, but like nothing is getting completely like upheavaled, which is exactly where I want the sets to be right now. So I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Yep. You brought up like the unearthing and all that stuff. Admittedly, I don't know a lot about the lore. I know of it and vague facts about it and this and that, vague storylines. And Jules probably knows more than I do. I was actually surprised at how much unearthing there is in this set.
Yeah.
Is that like the time travel stuff, or is it just the Mishra, the Brothers War is known for like things coming back to life? Like, I was just surprised by the sheer amount of it, pretty much.
So the Brothers War started with Urza and Mishra being archaeologists under the tutelage of a professor named Tokasia, and they were out in the desert and they were just digging up these old Thran relics, which before Urza and Mishra got involved, digging up the relics was purely like an academic pursuit for them. They were like, let's just study this big, like, non-functioning hunk of metal and wonder what it might have once been used for. And then Urza and Mishra discovered like the Big Daddy Power Stone, and because they were squabbling little brats, they broke it in half, and it turned into the Might Stone and the Meek Stone, and they carried these things around with them, and they realized that they could use these things to like revive these ancient Thran war machines, these big relics, And so they started like bringing these robots back to life, and like
Okay.
both of them, like they both recognized that this power stone that they had broken, the Might Stone and Meek Stone, would be infinitely more powerful if they could reassemble it. So each of them was just trying to bully the other one into giving them their half of the stone. And it turned into this war that annihilated continents.
Yep.
And like the Mishra got so corrupted by like Phyrexian influences that he ended up, going, like, he was ostensibly the bad guy in the original run. But I mean, like, then Urza, 3 minutes later, Urza turned into also a bad guy. Like he was a garbage human as well. He just wasn't corrupted by Phyrexia. So it's very.
So that's kind of how like the
archaeological.
Power Stones play into the Unearth and all that.
Yes.
Okay.
So like they realized very quickly that they were both talented enough artificers that they could recreate these big war machines, but they could not recreate the power sources. They had to dig up the power stones.
Okay, that makes sense.
The archaeology, like you can see this on the card Power Stone Retriever something.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about how they can always create more automatons, but like power stones are a limited supply until you go into the desert and dig up more and find more of them. So like that became a limited resources part of their whole war event.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they were constantly digging for new things, new designs that they could reappropriate and turn into war machines and bigger, better power stones that they could use.
That's what the unearthing is representing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, now it's all clicking now. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Appreciate that little class.
I've been talking a lot, and like we worked very hard to get Julian onto our show so that we could listen to Julian talk with us, and I haven't heard what he thinks about Bro at all.
I would also love to know what your thoughts are on Bro.
I appreciate that, bros. Similar to y'all, I was not super engaged in the spoiler season as it was going about. I kind of just waited for the big dump at the end and then checked everything out. I agree. I don't think the set is really, blowing the lid off any sort of power levels in really any format, which I think is great as well. We don't need to power creep. We've already done that, and I think we're in the middle of kind of reeling that back, which I think is a good thing. I think the biggest thing for me here with Bro, and since I've been so focused with House of Commons doing strictly competitive stuff, and there's so many fewer cards that we can actually properly utilize in that format, having this opportunity to come on your guys' show and really look through every single common and see what's going on, I gained a reappreciation for just how every set, there's always all sorts of commons that we can actually utilize. And, even if they're not essentially strict upgrades or whatever, there's just a ton of commons that are at this point a certain level and a certain level of utility, of power and utility that no matter what sort of strategy you want to do, you can always kind of find a home. And I definitely feel like being able to go through, I mean, we have nearly 50 cards that we're going to talk about. So yeah, it was a real treat to go through and kind of rediscover all that sort of stuff. And I agree. I think the set is put together mechanically, and I'm sure it's going to be like a great draft environment as well. I think it's very well balanced, and also loving the art as well. So just very excited to kind of get my hands on these cards and actually start seeing them put in work.
Yeah, well said.
I'm really glad that you mentioned being on the House of Commons and talking about the competitive things. This seems wildly unlikely, but in case anyone isn't familiar with Julian and his work, he and Chev run the other PDH podcast. It's called House of Commons, and they focus very directly on the competitive part of the PDH scene. And so they have also done a set review. We're collaborating on the set review, which is fantastic, because there are a lot of cards in the set that are worth talking about. There aren't a ton that are going to completely warp the meta, but there are a ton that are worth discussing because there's some very cool stuff here. And so we decided that we were going to do it together. We are collaborating on it. So we sent Liam to California to record with the House of Commons, and they talked about the cards that they thought were going to be the most impactful for the competitive scene. And we are not going to repeat all of that.
Sure.
The House of Commons is something that you should be listening to anyway because it's phenomenal. So
yeah, absolutely.
Go listen to that episode for the really competitive cards. I do want to just say a couple of their names here because these are real juicers.
Worth it, yeah.
And if we don't say their names, I would be doing you a tiny disservice. Overwhelming Remorse, monster of a removal card. Bitter Reunion is a better Tormenting Voice in a very cool way, and we like that. Loran's Escape, Gaia's Gift, we're getting a lot more of these cheap instant speed, hexproof, indestructible protection pieces.
Yeah, we've gotten 2 or 3 just this year, I think.
Yeah, and that is that's going to be moderately game changing for white and green. Is there, what else should we mention?
Well, I'm going to do the cheeky podcaster thing of saying if people want to hear the other ones that we haven't mentioned, they should go listen to the show. But
sure.
You know
I mean, they definitely should do that. Yeah.
One I guess what I'll say is and something that we discuss on the show is this set didn't do anything extremely new in terms of like pushing design space, I would say, or completely warping the format, at least on the competitive side. But we did get just a lot of additional redundancy and a lot of important effects. Like you said, the cheap protection spells, very aggressively costed removal spells, all that sort of stuff. And we kind of discussed how we're starting to hit critical mass of this thing where you can actually start having to make decisions about the fact that, okay, well, what white protection spells do I want? What green, give a creature hexproof spells do I want? So that's interesting, just because now all of a sudden, you can actually kind of mix and match as opposed to, okay, there's 3 options and I have to play all 3 because I need my commander to live.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
For years, I've had these decks where, like our first ever 3x3, I talked about Rabid Wombat. In 2013, the Rabid Wombat deck ran every single green instant with the word hexproof on it. And like I was just desperate. Like every single time they printed a new one, I was cutting random other stuff from the deck to just jam more of that in there. Now they print Gaia's Gift, and I go, okay, my protection suite is saturated, so I'm going to cut one of the worst hexproof indestructible cards for this new better one. And that feels completely different, and it feels really good, honestly.
Yeah. Another thing is that if you wanted to be cheeky, and that's one of the other great things about Pauper, like I was saying, there's all the cards are you can have a home for all sorts of cards. Is that you can, for different decks, you can have different suites of protection. Like you're probably going to want protection spells or removal spells in all of your decks, but depending on what you pull, if you're literally playing off cards that you pull from packs, or if you just want to mix things up, if there's certain arts or lore that you want to incorporate into your list, you can play different ones to fit whatever the identity of the deck you're playing is.
That's exactly
right. If you want to go for flavor wins or all that kind of stuff.
Bird Horse runs all of the white protection that costs 1 mana because it needs it to be really cheap. But like Sigardian Paladin runs all of the white protection that involves counters. So stuff like Take Up the Shield and
exactly.
Feat of Resistance. Like I will run those over Apostle's Blessing in Sigardian Paladin because they're protection and counters. So it's an excellent point.
Right.
Yep, it is a good point. We're getting quite a bit of variety, a lot of choices now. So I think we can move on to our actual set review here. Basically what we did here, we didn't break it down by necessarily color or anything like that. What Jules mentioned earlier, we've got 40 or 50 cards to talk about. What we did is we picked a handful of commons that we love, a handful of uncommons that we love, and we're just going to sort of take turns talking about them, get our co-host feedback on them, kind of give a brief description of why we like them, what kind of deck we see them going in, or if potentially they spawn a new type of archetype, which we don't see that a lot in common, but, just stuff like that. We don't have to go super in-depth, and we're going to try to avoid going over all 100 commons or however many there were in the set. So I think with that said, Dave, do you want to start us off? You want to hit us with some commanders?
Yeah, I would love to tell you about some commanders because, as I mentioned earlier, I spent a lot of time just going through the set. I also spent some time this afternoon just putting deck drafts together. The one that I'm really excited about is called Cradle Clearcutter. Cradle Clearcutter is a 6-mana, 3/6 artifact creature golem.
I love that you started with this type of creature too.
Yeah, it's this is one of the kinds of decks that I really enjoy. It has one main ability, and that is you can tap it to add an amount of green mana equal to its power. So as a 3/6 baseline, you can tap it to add 3 mana. Or if you equip it with a Great Axe, and now you have an 8/6, you can tap it, add 8 green mana.
And put a Rancor on it. Yeah, whatever.
Toss on a Rancor. Well, no. So I'm not going to put Rancor on the Clearcutter. I'm going to tap it for 8 mana to play a Wrecking Beast and put Rancor on the Wrecking Beast. And then I'm going to tap some of my lands to put the Great Axe onto the Wrecking Beast also. Like that.
Yep.
That's honestly all I want to do with this creature. It's just like I have a mana dork in the command zone that taps for whatever its power is. So
A whole bunch.
toss him a bunch of axes on him and then tap him for a lot.
Yep.
It's just big, dumb, stompy green. What I think makes him particularly interesting is that he has the ability called Prototype, where for 3 mana, you can cast him as a 1/3 that still has that ability. So he can be the dork that comes down on turn 3 and taps for 1 mana base, plus 5 more for the Great Axe, or 2 more for the Bone Splitter, or whatever.
Axe mana.
Which I'm probably going to do with him.
Sure.
Like I think playing him on turn 3 is usually the right call. And then like if he dies to Bolt, like okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'll either, if I have 8 mana, I'll recast him for 8 as a 3/6 that doesn't die to Bolt. Or, if I only have 5, I'll recast him again as a 1/3 and then just put the Great Axe on him to get that mana. Like the difference in his stat line, I think, is really well represented by this 3 mana for a 1/3 or 6 mana for a 3/6 that both have this massive mana ability. So I think he's going to be super fun. I
think so too.
I put my Moxfield deck up on that this afternoon, so I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, and if anybody's curious, the commander tax and all that stuff still applies to Prototype, correct?
Yes.
If you're casting for its Prototype out of the command zone.
Yes.
Okay.
That's unfortunate.
Prototype is an alternate cost. You still pay all appropriate additional costs.
Still pay the sales tax.
So you're essentially trying to utilize this as just a new and cheeky version of mono green Stompy.
Oh yeah. I think it's a particularly interesting take on mono green Stompy because of cards like Great Axe are now much more valuable to you.
Yeah.
In that you can use Great Axe as a source of 5 mana. Or I mean if you have Vitalize in your hand or like whatever Dragon Scale boon, like 2+1/+1 counters and untap it, like now the Great Axe is like 12 mana for you. It gets out of hand.
Cranking out stuff. Yeah, it sure does.
You know what's really cute is you can use something like Giant Growth, and now this becomes a dark ritual basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are like what's even better is there's a handful of Giant Growths that untap the creature.
Yeah, that's true.
So you can get
that's true.
Crazy burst mana out of this guy. Like Bull's Strength is a 2 mana +2/+2 trample and untap. Like
wild.
There's a different one that's like for 2 mana it's +3/+3 and untap it and it gains reach. Like it's supposed to be this I got your flyer combat trick, but actually it's just like I get 10 mana. Like so
yeah, there's definitely starting to be critical mass of those too. I want to say there's like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Okay. You're starting to sell me on this.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, you can.
I was sold when he brought up the Great Axe.
Yeah, and like
that sounds fun.
When I put the deck together, I originally added in all of those +2 power and untap it cards, and then afterwards I started to cut them because I was worried that the deck was just going to get here's turn 5. I have 15 mana. My hand is empty. Like now what? Like so I wanted to sort of dial back a little bit to have some staying power. And I wanted to focus more on the Great Axes and the Bone Splitters and the Amorphous Axes because those are going to give me the mana when I want the mana, and then I can spend the mana to move them onto the Wrecking Beast or the Colossal Dreadmaw or the Rust Goliath, whatever a Rust Goliath is. Who even knows? Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Don't go away.
So yeah, that's for me. That's the interesting take that this has on Big Green Stompy is that now all of this it's half a Voltron deck, but the Voltron's giving you mana, and then the Voltron is doing the Stompy. So like that's how it appeals.
Sort of plays right into what you and Jules were talking about earlier. How you can build it in 2 or 3 different ways depending on how you want your deck to go. What you want the flavor to be, what do you want it to look like, that sort of thing. It's very cool. Very cool design space.
You can even adjust your game plan amongst those 3 ways mid-game, depending on the classic question: who's the beatdown? Right.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's you.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
You got a lot of mana there.
But I mean, I love 6 toughness. That blocks like literally the entire format.
Yeah, for days.
So if you need to, you can just set up the wall and hold out.
Yep.
Yeah, and like a bunch of those things that untap it also give it reach. So like
Right.
It really does block everything in the format.
All right. Well, I'm going to keep my first one here short and sweet. I'm going to do the honorable mention first. I picked Battery Bear. It's the Simic one, the Simic uncommon creature. It's a 3/4 human artificer, and it's sort of a mana dork, or helps make mana dorks. Rules box says creatures you control have tap to add a colorless mana. This mana cannot or can't be spent to cast a non-artifact spell, and whenever you cast an artifact spell with mana value 6 or greater, draw a card. I don't know what to do with this, but the potential is very exciting. I'm thinking, Simic Metalcraft, that sort of thing, but I honestly wouldn't know where to begin, because when I think of artifact synergies, when I think of Metalcraft decks, Simic is probably the last color combination that I'm even considering. It's always been Rakdos or whatever. So I saw this card on your list too, Dave. Did you have thoughts about this one? Or I just think it's really interesting. I think there's some cool design space here, and something could be done with it, but I do not know what. I just thought it is neat.
I have a couple thoughts, but I want to hear Julian's thoughts first.
Yeah.
All right, so let me hit you with some stats real quick. I did a quick little Scryfall search. We've got 36 cards that are artifacts that are converted mana cost. Is it 6? Yeah, 6 or greater in the Simic colors.
Okay.
I think the thing for me is that our top end is going to be probably a lot of these prototype, these giant artifact prototype things that we're getting.
Mm-hmm.
Things like Boulder Branch Golem, things like Depth Charge Colossus. Maelstrom Colossus is going to be a huge pickup. That's the one that's got Cascade. So, we can, once again, play we have the biggest stuff and we're going to punch the hardest. But I think that something that Simic does super good is there's a lot of great, in general in Magic, there's a lot of great ETB creatures now. But now all of a sudden, we can convert all of those creatures that normally we would just play for the ETB, and then they just kind of sit there. Mm-hmm. Now all of a sudden, they're going to give us mana. So we're still playing like a Simic mid-range grind game, and we can have some blink shenanigans if we want. But it's just now our top end is even heavier and feistier.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also too, being in green, we're in the Sprout Swarm colors. So if you just want to crank out a bunch of tokens and just use them as mana dorks to cast the bigger stuff, cast your Colossuses and Ulamogs or what have you. I guess not an art. Yeah, it would have to be an artifact spell, but yeah. So I didn't think about that too. Sure. Little token strategy.
What do you've got cooking up, Dave? Any ideas?
I think that you nailed it. I think that the top end and this deck's plan for winning the game is going to be have biggest creatures and beat face with the big creatures.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is like uniquely positioned. Like when you look at a card that's already really good, like Hard Evidence. Hard Evidence is a 1-mana blue sorcery that makes a crab and a clue. And now the crab is a mana dork. Like
now the crab is a mana dork. Yep.
that's kind of nuts.
A good point.
So I think that this deck has a lot of potential. I think that it's going to be really difficult to balance these two abilities. And what's going to be extra weird is you're balancing these two abilities. I want little ETBs that are now also mana dorks. You have to balance that against I want big
gigantic
honky artifact beaters that are going to end the game for me.
Yeah.
And you also have to balance that against how much of the ETB creatures do I want to be artifacts? So
also true.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Hard Evidence, but if you're talking about something like Sarilf's Packmate, maybe Sarilf's Packmate is a terrible example because you can spend this Power Stone mana to foretell it, just not cast it from foretell. But there's other ETB creatures like Muldrifter. You can't. No, you can use Power Stone mana to evoke. No, evoke is an alternate casting cost. You cannot use Power Stone mana to evoke a Muldrifter. So that's the thing. Muldrifter is probably a pretty obvious include because it's a draws you cards and taps for mana, but none of the mana that your body's tapped for can be used to cast your Muldrifters or your Owl Bears or your whatever else that draws cards.
Yeah.
So this stipulation on the Power Stones is X mana can't be used to cast certain spell or certain spell from the hand or something like that. We've seen this a few times more recently. You think, okay, well, I guess I just have to play artifacts, but there's a lot of things that you can use mana for that aren't casting spells, activated abilities. One thing that I'm seeing just from this Scryfall search, a Mirror Shell Crab is a hell of a card. Happens to be an artifact. a large creature, but it also has that channel ability that allows you to mana leak something, which you can use your power
Which you
stones
can
for.
use your stones for. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So things like channel, things like flashback. I think invokers are probably
Yeah,
going to
your
be good
invokers.
here. You know, things like
Yep.
Bonder's Ornament. You can always spend your Power Stone mana on a Bonder's Ornament, and that's
true.
pretty great. So
That's all I wanted.
right. So yeah, I think this deck is going to be really interesting. I think that people brewing this deck are going to have to put in a lot of work to find the balance between the artifact beaters and the outlets for the Power Stone mana, and what kinds of creatures are going to be producing this Power Stone mana.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons I liked it so much is it's really cool and it doesn't explicitly tell you what deck to build with it.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I thought that was pretty neat. Well, Jules, what do you got for us for your first commander?
Well, I feel like we just did a bit of a deep dive on that one, so I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. I feel like Yoshin Tactician deserves a shout out. This is going to be a 2, a white and a blue for a creature human soldier for a 3/4. And it's just got one line of text. It says, other soldiers you control get +1/+1. So we're on the Lord sub theme. I was doing a little bit of digging beforehand. We have 301 soldiers in Azorius at common.
That is wild.
Surely there's a way that we can put together some sort of coherent tribal deck, which I think is cool because at least I haven't seen a ton of tribal decks in PDH as a whole, other than like elf decks, I think, especially something like a Abomination of Llanowar. But seeing more tribal decks, I just, this is more options in our format, more things that people can do. And, historically Magic players love tribal decks. So Yoshin Tactician seems like a great pickup.
Yeah, I agree. I am always down for new lords, and I like all the lord, like I like lord creatures as a concept, and in particularly I like them in white and or blue. So I'm totally with you.
Also, combat is so much more grindy in PDH than in something like EDH, where it's just these crazy blowout turns. So having just like a base buff, just, as a static effect is pretty huge. And that can be, the difference between a lot of trades or, losing creatures in combat as opposed to coming out on top.
Yeah. What do you think, Dave? What do you think about 301 soldiers?
I'm really glad that Julian mentioned this stat, the 301, because the first time I looked at Yoshin Tactician, I was like, okay, white blue tribal, like it's probably you're probably better off with the diagraph guy, the white blue spirit guy that gives all your spirits +1/+1, like, and hexproof, because that's enormous. But now I'm thinking about this, like there's got to be better soldiers than there are spirits. Like it's not just about the buff, it's about the card quality that you have access to within this tribal, and like 301 is a heck of a number. So like now
plenty of choices.
I am now intrigued. I wasn't 10 minutes ago, but now I am.
We got him.
The other thing is, I guess because this is the Brothers' War, but there is randomly soldier support, like it's almost a sub theme in this set. So not only are there soldiers in this set, but there are instant sorceries, whatever, that just care about having soldiers or making soldiers or something. Right. So there's support.
Like that's the other thing. Like there has to be a lot more cards that explicitly reference soldiers than there are cards that explicitly reference spirits. So like I think
for sure.
I think that the soldier tribal blue-white deck might be better than the spirit tribal blue-white deck.
Yeah, I think it is too.
It's a very interesting avenue. I'm excited to see someone else build it so that I can look at it.
I'll let you know what I come up with.
Okay, good. I'm gonna stick with my clear cutter. That's my kind of brainless. So
what do you got next for us, Dave?
I only have one other that I want to talk about, and it's a weird one. It's a mono black card called Gurgling Anointer, which is
with a phenomenal creature type.
It is a Phyrexian horror. Yeah. It's a 3-mana 1/3 flyer that whenever you draw your second card each turn, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on it. So this is going to reward you for stuff like on your turn, because you get to, you get one card during your draw step. Your second card could come from like a blood token or a clue or something. Just like whatever random card draw you can come up with. It's going to reward that by getting huge. And it's also going to reward stuff like all of the instant speed sign-in bloods. I forgot what they're called right now. The instant speed, pay 3 mana, 2 life, draw 2 cards. Like you do that on someone else.
Yeah, there's
Is it Blood Pact? Is that an instant?
Blood Pact. There's a 4-mana one. I think that has marginal upside from
Pointed Discussion, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of these guys. Pointed Discussion gives you the blood token so that you can trigger this next turn as well. So I think there's lots of great ways to give this guy counters. And like drawing cards is something that you want to do anyway. So like he's rewarding you for playing the game. So like that's it's very cool. So he's going to
Yes,
get
it is.
and then because he's huge, he's going to draw aggro and he's going to die. People are going to kill him. And he has
That's
more
okay.
text. When he dies, you get to return another target creature with mana value less than his power to the battlefield. So if you get this guy up to a 4-power creature and then he dies, you get a 4-mana creature from your graveyard to the battlefield for free. And then you get to cast this guy and you get to start doing it all over again. So I think this is going to like do some really cool stuff with like card draw, probably a control shell with a bunch of like cool ETB creatures that you want to use and then sacrifice in your graveyard so that when this guy dies, you get those cards back and you can sacrifice him. You can do stuff with mill, sacrifice, draw cards. I think it's just playing into a lot of different avenues that Black already likes playing into, and it's just going to reward you for doing things that you want to do anyway. So I think it's got some potential.
Yeah, I do too. And that we've seen that whenever you draw your second card, put a counter on it, but that's usually in blue. I love that it's in black.
Yeah.
So it should be very interesting.
I think the only thing that I want to do with this, Dave, you specifically said, if you get him up to a 4/4, you can get back a 4-drop. Hear me out. Our Anointer dies, and then we just get back Gravedigger, which then puts the Anointer back into our hands, so we can just pay 3 for it.
There it is.
It is.
That's the combo.
Wow, got him.
Yep, there we go.
I love it. Yeah. If he's only 3-power at the time, then you get back your Cadaver Imp, and then that's it. You're perfect.
That's it. You're golden.
Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the grind game on this seems insane, which
absolutely.
for me is a draw.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if it's Brood of Cockroaches level grind game, but I feel like it's got to be close. And
it
like
is
that
pretty close.
That is appealing.
All right, next up.
How,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go. No, I was just gonna. How much of a potential Voltron sort of thing do you think this is going to be, or do you think it's just going to be a draw engine and then kind of like a looping recursion engine?
Well, I was thinking about that too, and isn't it worded? Sorry, let me pull it back up. Isn't it worded to where like because we have effects that'll say it's a black instant or whatever. Give target creature +2/+0, and when it dies, bring it back to the battlefield. So wouldn't it die? You get a creature back, and you get that back.
Yep.
Now we're thinking with
See
portals.
that?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
I think
so. Yeah, to answer your question, Jules, I think for me it would be like not as much Voltron as it would just be like instant speed interaction.
So I think that those cards absolutely have a place in this deck. All of your Feign Death and your Undying Malice, all of those things I think belong in this deck for sure. But I think that Bone Splitter also belongs in this deck.
Okay.
Because this guy flies.
Nothing wrong with that.
So like I don't know how hard you want to go on the Voltron strategy. And I would definitely focus on things that have cheap equip costs because you're kind of hoping that this guy dies with some amount of frequency.
Yeah.
And you'll want to move the equipment around and re-equip things. So like the Bone Splitter that equips for 1 is going to be a lot better than the Copper Carapace that equips for 3. But I think that there's definitely a solid home in this deck for some cheap, powerful equipment for sure.
It goes back again to that decision tree we were talking about. Like, do you want to build it Voltron? Do you want to build it with some equipment? So the set is shaping up to be pretty cool.
Definitely.
Heck yeah.
All right, next up, I've got one that I know for sure was mentioned on the House of Commons show last night because it is, as the pals say, it is a juicer. So I won't spend a lot of time talking about it, but it is my favorite card of the set. It is Hero of the Dunes.
Yes, let's go.
Let's go, right? It is a 5-mana Orzhov Commander human soldier. It's a 3/2, which isn't great stats for 5 mana, let's face it, but when Hero of the Dunes enters the battlefield, return target artifact or creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And it doesn't stop there. It says creatures you control with mana value 3 or less get +1/+0. Like, this card just doesn't stop. This is amazing. I don't know how else to say it other than it's amazing. I'm sure the House of Commons went in very good depth on it, on the competitive aspect of it, but I just absolutely love it. It literally does everything I want an Orzhov Commander to do. It affects combat, it affects the graveyard, it cares about little bitty artifacts and little bitty creatures and going wide, and it just has a little bit of everything. And it's, if you squint, look sideways, the art is almost like Alicia. So there's that.
Where was this 3 weeks ago when we were recording the graveyard episode?
Yeah, like the 4x4.
Sorry. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
the
this
4
this would 100% been that.
Sorry, Necropanther. You just
You're
got
out.
you just got dumpstered, bud.
Yeah, hardcore dumpsters, not even close.
Rest in peace, Necropanther. You'll be missed.
Yep. I'm a huge fan of it. Obviously, I love it. So, what do you got to add, Jules? I don't want to spoil anything from your show, but
Oh no! Listen, I gushed over this card a ton. I broke down all the little interactions that I could see happening, but I agree with you. This is my personal favorite card in the set, and I'm looking to brew with this in both CPDH and PDH. I'm definitely going to try and pick this deck up for sure.
excellent. Yeah, because I could see how it could be. To me, it'll fit in any, just like we've been talking about. It'll fit in any Orzhov sort of shell you want. It can be control-y, it can be grindy, it could be semi-aggro if you wanted it to. So I just think the potential is really high, and it lets you, because it cares about artifact and because it cares about, small mana value creatures, and it cares about all creatures because it pumps their power, it gives you that avenue to really play with any of them that you want. You don't have to now I got to focus on tokens, or now I got to focus on mana value 5 or higher or whatever. Like, it literally just opens up all the creatures in white and all the creatures in black and says, here you go. What do you want to put in here? Because I play nicely with all of them.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I love it. You got anything to add on the hero, Dave?
I'm thinking of black and white creatures that cost 3 or less, and I've already come up with Inspiring Overseer and Crypt Rats and Phyrexian Rager and
Yep.
Spirited Companion. Like,
Yeah. Dusk Legion Zealot.
my gal's got some gasoline.
Yeah, just nonstop. And it's in white, so
Yeah.
it's a good flicker color. It's in black, so it's got Feign Death and all those other ones, so it's gonna not have a problem coming back or entering the battlefield.
Yeah, you can flicker her for days.
Yep. So
That's very cool.
it's black,
I
you
like
can self-mill. It's got everything. It's beautiful.
You're slowly but surely converting me into an Orzhov stan. The more I interface with you, I feel like I'm.
It is. It is like the I don't know. It's the best to me. It's like the richest, the deepest, the fullest color pair.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun for sure.
So, but yeah, that's all I got. What do you got up next, Jules?
I want to talk about another mono black card. This is the Battlefield Butcher. Happens to be a soldier.
Excellent name.
2 and a black. We've got a 1/4, and then we have an activated ability of 5 and tap. Each opponent loses 2 life, but this is the year of our Lord 2022, so there's a mana reduction ability. This is going to cost 1 generic less for each creature card in your graveyard.
Oh, it's beautiful.
In my personal opinion, I think black is the single richest color in the PDH format. You could just you could build mono black mid-range / control any number of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And for a control mage at heart like myself, this is absolutely beautiful. We just get to play all the best black removal spells, all the edicts like Fleshbag Marauder, all sorts of tasty self-mill and draw 2, lose 2. And then with our graveyard being filled up, or just us having ground the entire table out of resources, we can slowly but surely activate Battlefield Butcher every turn and just close the game out. So this is mono black control at its filthiest and most pure, but I love it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
When I first read this card, I was looking at it like, this is just a much worse loyal minion. Loyal minion is part of the loyal cycle. It's a 3 mana 3/1 that, at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, each opponent loses 3. And then I stared at this guy a little longer, and I'm like, okay, same mana cost. This guy has an activated ability, which is a little more expensive than just a triggered ability that happens each turn. But he's got a 4-butt. Like, that loyal guy draws hate from everyone and dies to like a pin. This guy's gonna stick around. I think building this guy as a control deck instead of loyal minion as like an aggro drain everyone all at once as fast as possible deck. I think that's the right call. I think that's the maneuver.
Yeah, I think so too. And look, it's another ability that Power Stones can pay for.
Yeah, Power
True.
Stones and
Very
dead
true.
creatures.
Yes,
Yes, exactly.
Power Stones and bodies.
Yeah, it's like Graveyard Convoke, really. You tap the
Yeah, there
creatures
you
in your
go.
graveyard. Yeah.
The other
That
thing
needs
is
to be a mechanic.
the other thing is that the other kind of premier like mono black drain control commanders that we have in the format are like Grey Merchant of Asphodel and Sir Conrad. And I can tell you that if you roll up to the table with either of those, you are immediately going to be targeted. But this, I think, is going to play... it's going to be much more inconspicuous in terms of what you're actually doing until it's too late.
I agree. It is very sneaky. And it's one of those that you you don't have to have it on the battlefield until you're ready for it. Like you can do whatever else your deck wants to do until you're ready to start draining a little bit.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah.
For sure.
I like it.
What do we got next?
What do you got next, Dave? You got any extra ones for us?
No, I'm out. I only wanted to talk about those two.
Okay, I got two more. One of them is I got about as much to say about it as I did Battery Bear, and that is Third Path Iconoclast. It's just is it mana for a 2/1 human monk. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you create a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token. Card seems great. Spell slingers, affinity strategies, metalcraft strategies, that sort of thing. I don't play a lot of Izzet, even though I did play a Chimera deck last night. I don't tend to play a lot of Izzet in PDH generally, but this one seems good. I don't know if it's quite on the level of, say, Crackling Drake or anything like that, but it seems really good if you want to go fast and you want to go wide and you care about artifacts. I definitely thought that one deserved a mention. What do you think, Jules?
I think this just hits like every single checkbox that you could possibly want, right?
Yeah.
And I will attempt to hyperbolize here, and my favorite card in the set is Hero of the Dunes, but I think probably the best card in the set is Third Path Iconoclast.
Ooh, okay.
I don't know. Maybe Dave will attempt to refute. No. Well, so like you said, we're in blue red. Crackling Drake is, I think, kind of like the gold standard presently for blue red. But this just does so much. It wants you to spell sling. You're already playing just all sorts of great blue and red spells. Being able to go wide is really nice, especially since red has a ton of spells that can give +2/+0, and all of a sudden you're in a swarming strategy.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they're artifacts is not it's consequential. Like you said, there's anything that has affinity, like Thoughtcast, there's Metalcraft. There's two of my favorite cards in the format are Reckless Fireweaver and Ingenious Artillerist, which
Yep.
now all of a sudden every time you cast a spell, that's just an additional 1 mana that you're pinging. So
yeah.
Yep.
And they're artifact creatures, so Impact Tremors and Reckless Fireweaver. You're getting them for 2.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Yeah.
Gross.
Yep. Again, there's a lot of potential here. I think it's really cool. I'll probably brew up something. I'm not great at brewing spell slinging decks, but I definitely want to give it a shot.
So
I'm not going to say that I'm good at it, but I just some tips that I've picked up. You just put in all the cantrips,
Okay.
and like a couple bounce spells, and then as many lightning bolts as you can stomach, and you just run with it.
I like that strategy.
the thing that I want to add, especially if we're talking about how to put the deck together and what it should look like, is that in terms of static ability, this guy functions almost exactly like Saheeli, the uncommon planeswalker, who also has the text, when you cast a non-creature spell, you get to create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. So it's not a soldier, but it's similar-ish. My boyfriend Blake has been tinkering around with a Saheeli list for over a year now, and he is one of the most talented deck brewers and constructors and ideas people that I've ever met in my life, and he's genuinely kind of stumped by this, because there are at least three. There are 3 really powerful directions you could take this deck, and there's not a ton of overlap. Like, you could go hard into artifacts and just play a lot of rocks and get bodies for them, and then you can utilize these affinity strategies, these artifact strategies. You can go with your Reckless Fireweavers and your Ingenious Artillerists. You could go wide tokens, and you could play all of your Trumpet Blasts and your Pack Attacks,
Burn Brights and all
your
that stuff.
Burn Brights, yes, that one. Or you could also just go burn and
just straight up
pretend that this guy is a young pyromancer with some preordains and serum visions tossed in there as well. And I have no idea what's best, and neither does Blake. And Blake has been tinkering with this deck for the Saheeli version. He's been tinkering with it for a year, and it's got us both completely stumped. And that's an achievement. And this guy's going to do the exact same thing, and people are going to show up with completely different builds of Third Path Iconoclast, and they probably only have Serum Visions and Lightning Bolt in common. And aside from that, they're just, the other 98 cards are completely separate, and you're going to be like, wow, I don't know what to expect from this card, because it's good no matter what you do.
See, and your little explanation right there, I think, is a good example of, once again, we have a commander that has 2 to 4 different deck building strategies just baked within it. It's not telling you what to do. It's just telling you what it does. And you got to figure out the rest. So I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Jules, what do you got?
I think I have two more ish left that I want to mention, but only one more that I want to like really get into, and that is the recruitment officer. So this is going to be a single white for a 2/1 human soldier, and then they're going to have an activate ability of 3 and a white. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with mana value 3 or less from among them and put it into your hand, and you put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing this 3 or less sort of thing over like the last few cards we talked about. I'm wondering what prompted that.
Right.
One, I've always been a fan of mono white. Back in the olden days when I first started playing, I was the guy with the mono white angels deck. I pacifism. I had every printing of it.
Step
I
one,
like that
Sarah
mono
Angel.
white.
Step 2, Armageddon. Game
Done.
over.
Well, so
Game over.
I mean, not legal in our format, but Wrath of God is probably top 5 cards of all time for me.
Sure.
But I appreciate the lengths that Wizards has been going to recently to kind of prop mono white up across all formats, really. And now that we're getting things that actually say draw a card on them in mono white, I think this though is card advantage that you really can't refute. The fact that this only costs 1, the fact that it doesn't tap for this ability, the fact that we're looking at the top 4 cards,
that's huge.
In the context of a 100-card deck, 4 is not that much, but activate this a few times, you've dug, and you're playing mono white, so you're going to be playing a ton of value creatures anyway, and just being able to kind of potentially go past 3 lands that you don't need or anything. I think this is going to be a great sort of mono white toolbox deck, and obviously you can play all the other mono white cards that are nice staples or fit your fancy or whatever. Yeah, I think this is a huge step in the right direction for any sort of mono white strategy in PDH.
Yeah, exactly. You brought it up, but the fact that you can it's repeatable, like it doesn't tap. So whatever mana you want to spend on it, you can just keep doing it. Kind of like Vivian's Grizzly in green, which I think that was a little bit better, but it's that effect in white, and I think it's amazing. Honestly, I had not really looked at this one during spoiler season or anything, so I'm glad to hear it from you. That's good. I like it.
I like this guy. The first mono white deck I ever built was Ramosian Captain, which is it's very similar. It's a cheap little white weenie that gives you a mana sink that will put other creatures. It gives you massive card advantage mana sink, basically, that just produces creatures constantly. So I'm definitely into this as a strategy. I love it. I'm excited to see what people come up with for this guy. And
its activation is a single white pip and then colorless mana. So it's not hard that hard to do with some Sisay's Rings or whatever kind of rocks you want to get out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I like it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, I only had one left as well, and it's Golgari, so I felt obligated to at least talk about it a little bit. And it's a spider. I love me some spider commanders. And that is Skyfisher's Spider. For 2, a black and a green, it's a 3/3 spider with reach, of course. And when it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. It's perfectly Golgari actions right there. When you do, destroy target non-land permanent. Not creature with mana value 2 or less, or not creature that's been dealt damage this turn. No, it's just destroy anything that's not a land. And then it has some other text. When it dies, you gain 1 life for each creature in your graveyard. If you do, exile the spider from your graveyard. I'm not really worried about that. It's that first paragraph of rules text that I'm instantly fascinated by, because it's just constantly blowing stuff up. This fits right into, this one may not have as many like decision trees coming off of it as we've talked about already, but fits right into an aristocrat shell with all those feign death type spells we talked about before, return to action, that sort of thing. Of course I like it because it's not going to win you a bunch of games, but it's going to be fun. It's going to wreck the table. You're going to cause a little chaos, a little bit of havoc, and it's going to be real fun. So I like it a lot. I'll probably play with it a few times and go from there. Do you like the spider, Dave?
I love the spider almost exclusively because of the way its third ability is templated. It would have been really easy for Wizards to template this. When the spider dies, you may exile it from your graveyard. When you do, gain 1 life for each card in your graveyard. Mm-hmm. Like it would have been easy for them to do that. But because they say you may choose to gain life, and if you do, exile it. Exiling it is not a precondition of gaining the life, which means if you target this thing with your Undying Malice or your Feign Death or your Fake Your Own Death, whatever, we have like 12 of these cards now, that you can stack these triggers so that the spider comes back into play and you get to nuke any non-land permanent you want again and then you can gain 1 life for each card in your graveyard. And this exile the spider thing does nothing at that point because it's not in your graveyard.
You just blew my mind.
Yeah. Like, they templated this.
Never in a million years would I have caught up to that.
They templated this so that undying effects work with the spider exactly how you want them to. And that is choice. Spicy.
That is amazing. Okay. So I like it way better than I thought I did.
Good.
Thank you for that. It's beautiful.
Yeah. What do you think,
well,
Jules?
that wraps up. Yeah. Jules, what do you got?
I agree with everything that's been said. I love essentially non-conditional removal. And, also we get the privilege of sacrificing a creature here as well. So this is kind of the full package for me.
Yeah. And I know it's in green already, which already has like artifact and enchantment removal, but it'll get rid of anything, Oblivion Rings, oubliettes, all that stuff, whatever's troubling you.
Yeah.
In a deck that's already full of every single feign death, fake your own death, undying malice, like in a deck that already runs every single one of those in print, the privilege of sacrificing another creature is exactly the right way to phrase that.
Yeah.
Like,
yep.
I'll sacrifice Gary. Gary also had undying malice. That's crazy. Gary comes back. Like,
come on, Gary.
How did that happen? I'll destroy your thing.
It's weird how that happens.
Why did they ever print that card?
Anyway. It's lovely,
when we get Gavin on the show, I'll ask him for you.
Yeah, Gavin, hit us up.
Please do.
Yeah, he's on our short list.
That wraps up my commanders. I think we can move on to the common rarity cards. What do you think, Dave? You want to start us off since you're kindly waiting for us to wrap up our commander talk?
Do we want to hear about Disciples of Gix?
Oh my God, I thought that was.
So maybe I'll
yes.
I'll leave this one to the listeners. I want them to sound off on Twitter and in the comments and all that stuff. What can we do with Disciple of Gix, which is going to be a 6-mana mono black card that when it ETBs, we just search for 3 artifact cards and we put them into our graveyard? What does Triple Entomb do for us? I'm sure there's some crazy things that we can get up to, but right now I'm stumped. So I want everyone to let us know.
That is a good one because I don't have anything for this either, and I've thought about it on and off since it was foiled.
I have a couple of ideas, but none of them are very good, so I'm going to keep them to myself, and I'm going to wait for Twitter to tell me good ideas.
Yes, Twitters and Reddits and Discords. Yep.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
Well, I didn't mean to skip your last one, but I think we can move on to the commons now.
Yes. Yeah. Let's
do it. The meat and taters.
The first comment I want to talk about is a really excellent segue from the privilege of getting to sacrifice a creature, and that is Gixian Infiltrator. Gixian Infiltrator is a 2-mana, 2/1 Phyrexian human in black that says, whenever you sacrifice another permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Gixian Infiltrator. And the only thing that I really want to say about this card is to give you a friendly PSA reminder that treasures are permanents, and so is food, blood, and clues.
So is Fleshbag Marauder.
Flashback Marauder also a permanent. Yeah. So
and it's just whenever you sacrifice, it's not you don't have to sacrifice it to the Gixian Infiltrator. It's just a Bloodbriar in black.
Yeah. Fleshbag is also a permanent for sure, but to that end, we've had Mortician Beetle at common for years now. Mm-hmm. And Mortician Beetle, absolutely a powerhouse with a Fleshbag. You have a Mortician Beetle in play, you resolve a Fleshbag, your Beetle is now 5/5 minimum.
Yeah.
That's gross. But the thing that and I mean, yeah, I put Mortician Beetle in a lot of my decks that want to sacrifice creatures. But I have a lot of Rakdos decks that want to sacrifice other things. Mm-hmm. Ryan has this Mayhem Devil deck that he calls Blood Money. Mm-hmm. Because it's all about blood and treasures, and he wants to sacrifice those constantly. And having this little 2-mana idiot that's just going to become an 8/7 casually, for free, and you're not even mad when they kill it. You've invested nothing into this idiot. He's just a 2-mana body for you. If he eats a murder, fine, okay,
right? So go for it.
Sure. I didn't really care about him anyway. If he stays in play, he's going to end games. If he eats the removal spell, you're out 2 mana in a card, but whatever. You were still going to use those treasures. You were still going to use those bloods and those clues and everything else. So it's just free money. This guy's massive.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I was a huge fan of Bloodbriar, so I will definitely be a huge fan of the Infiltrator.
Yeah. I have a jury deck built which is it has that same line of text, and Jury routinely gets enormous. Like,
Sure.
I've seen him hit 30-30 in a game before. Like,
nice.
He just goes hard.
I have a very important question about your Jury deck.
Yeah.
Is the name of it Judge, Jury, and Executioner?
The name of it is The Murder Clown Wants Volunteers. Because
that's also a viable answer.
That is also a viable answer, yes.
I named it that because I used my first draft of it used every threat and effect in print.
Oh,
I know that feeling.
Yeah. So I was just like I first built Jury when I already had a Mayhem Devil deck built, and I wanted to distinguish the two so they weren't just like the exact same deck with different commanders. And so I was like, okay, Mayhem Devil is for my little baubles, my Panic Spell Bombs and my Wayfarer's Baubles and my like Rakdos Lockets. And Jury is going to be when I sacrifice everyone else's creatures because he's a circus clown.
Right.
He's just yeah. So that I've since taken the Mayhem Devil deck apart. I've shifted the focus of Jury a little bit, but I never changed the name. Still about volunteers.
Yep.
I like your name though. If I ever redesign it, Judge, Jury, and Executioner. That's good. It's very high quality.
That's a good one.
Who's next?
I'll take next. I got one here. It is white, but I think we got a whole cycle of these. My first one up is Airlift Chaplain. It's a human cleric for 2 and a white. It's a 1/1 human cleric, so not great. 3 mana for a 1/1, but it's flying, which is great. And then it's a mono white creature that cares about milling cards. When it enters the battlefield, you mill 3 cards. Then you may put a plains card or a creature card with mana value 3 or less from among the cards milled this way into your hand. If you don't, put a +1/+1 counter on Airlift Chaplain. It's a lot of words. It's a lot of text. Like I said, I think we got a whole 5-color cycle of these. I'm very intrigued. I was probably still on the Hero of the Dunes high when I saw this one, but it's very intriguing to me that we got a mono white creature that mills. And I'm very interested in just cramming a deck full of creatures, milling a bunch, and then bringing them back as soon as Hero of the Dunes hits the battlefield. So I don't know where else this Chaplain would play nicely, but it's definitely going to play nicely in my Hero of the Dunes deck. So for that reason alone, it's one of my favorites. What do you think, Jules?
I think the underrated part of this card is that this just is going to help you hit your land drops. You know, because you can get either a creature card or a plains card.
Or a 2/2 flyer.
Or a 2/2 flyer.
Or yeah,
for
also
3, yep.
You can elect to not put a card if you just need a larger flyer. And maybe you want those cards in your graveyard. So
let's see, there's those 3 decisions again. Do you want a flyer? Do you want a creature? Do you want a plains? Like,
right. Julian was saying you can choose not to put one. Like if you just whiff, like if your 3 cards are all like removal instants and you can't choose them, you just get a counter on it. It's like a good consolation prize. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair case is a 2/2 flyer. So
yeah, for sure.
Yep, I'm a fan. What do you got for us, Jules?
I think your card actually synergizes quite well with the card that I want to talk about, which is a Recommission. Also a white card, 1 and a white, a sorcery. We're going to return target artifact or creature card with mana value 3 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield. And if a creature enters the battlefield this way, it gets an additional +1/+1 counter. So yeah, if we're doing some mono white milling, this is going to be great. Any form of recursion is something that I'm always going to keep an eye on. Even though this is only 3 or less, this still hits a ton of great stuff. All of the mono white blink targets that you might want, all the ones that draw cards, even something like Airlift Chaplain. Since this can hit artifacts as well, there's a bunch of great targets for that. I'm thinking the Wellsprings, Mycosynth, and Ichor. Wayfarer's Bauble is a great target. Maybe a Relic of Progenitus as well. So I really just like the versatility of this, and coming straight to the battlefield is huge.
Yeah, especially if it's a creature. Like, is this almost better Unearth? Granted, Unearth is a single black and it does cycle.
Unearth cycles, which is
this hits an artifact or a creature.
The thing for me that's really important about Unearth cycling is that Relic of Progenitus is a thing in the format. So sometimes you don't have a graveyard, and Recommission is a dead card.
That's true. Yeah, sometimes I guess this could be just a dead card. Yeah, I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah,
good point.
Also, I want to mention it's going to be pretty hard to recommission a Relic because Relic exiles itself.
You were correct.
Oh yeah,
I learned that.
That was a test, and you passed.
I learned that when I built my Mayhem Devil deck, and I was like, "Oh, Relic is a slam dunk in here, but it doesn't trigger Mayhem Devil.
Well, if you
sacrifice.
tapped it to get rid of one card and the other player destroyed it, then you can get it back. There you go.
Yes.
We got there.
You know what? Tormod's Crypt. There you go.
Yeah.
Tormod's Crypt.
You can get back your. Well, can you? Yes. You can. You can definitely get back your Tormod's Crypt. Yeah, for sure.
Perfect.
Yeah. No, I love Recommission. It's a fantastic card. It ended up in. I mentioned at the beginning I was going through and like adding the good cards to the sideboards of all my online lists. It ended up in a lot more sideboards than I expected it was going to. So
yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it too. I'll probably end up with more copies of it than I initially thought I would.
Yeah.
All right, Dave. What do you got next?
Up next, I would like to talk about Stern Lesson.
Ooh, sounds harsh.
Okay.
Stern Lesson is a 3-mana blue instant. It says draw 2 cards, then discard a card. So far, this is catalog.
Mm-hmm.
Then you create a Power Stone token.
Ooh.
We talked about Battery Bearer, but have we explicitly talked about Power Stone tokens? They're kind of a thing in this set.
We haven't gone into depth on them or anything. We've sort of mentioned them, sort of told what they did, but
okay. So Power Stone tokens are little mana rocks. They tap to add a colorless mana to your pool, and they have the same mana restriction as Battery Bearer, where you cannot spend the mana to cast a non-artifact spell.
Right.
Which means
that's the important words there.
Yes. You can spend the mana to activate any ability you want, artifact or otherwise, and you can spend it to cast artifacts. I think that any blue deck that has a commander with an activated ability that costs mana wants this card.
Sure.
And I think that is an enormous quantity of decks. Like that's the other thing. I was going through putting these cards into sideboards, and I was like, man, Recommission is ending up in a lot more than I thought it would. The Power Stones did the same thing with me. Like I had to sort of stop halfway through and be like, wait, are Power Stones actually phenomenal? Like, are these cards really, really cool secretly? Like, I think that they're going to be. Yeah. Like when I first read them, I was like, oh, that's fun. Like whatever. I'm not super interested in that. But like this spell is already on rate for a catalog, and it's instant speed.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gives you a rock. Like,
right.
That seems good. Like, I think it's just going to be really interesting.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody, and they basically said the same thing. We were talking about Power Stones or just the new set or something, and they were like, well, Power Stone's just the set mechanic, and it's like treasures. I'm like, no, it is not like treasures at all. Like, treasures you get a one-time use. Granted, you can pick your color, but Power Stones don't go anywhere. They add to all your synergies.
Right. Like, treasures are lotus petals, which only some want. Like, Power Stones are Mind Stones, which a lot more decks want. Well, you can't sacrifice them for a card. Are they? Yeah, they're generic mana rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very good.
Excellent. All right, next one I want to talk about here. I'm just more excited about it than I am. I don't think it's going to be super big for our format or even 60 card Pauper, but we finally got a Juggernaut. I'm happy with. It's a 5-mana Mishra's Juggernaut. It's a 5/3 with trample. It attacks each combat if able, and the notable text on it is it has Unearth for 5 colorless and a red. You return it from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step, or if it would leave the battlefield, Unearth only as a sorcery. So I'm just excited we got a big colorless Juggernaut beater, finally.
Yeah.
That's all I got. It'll be fun to play with.
For sure. I think the biggest thing that I like about this is that it has Unearth. I mean, we mentioned it earlier, but Unearth is a very cool mechanic, and we see it on a lot of cards in this set.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I was really excited when I saw this card because I loved finally having something with Unearth in red.
Mm-hmm.
Because red historically has very, very few Unearth cards. But then when I was going through my decks, I ended up not putting this into very many because, like, I guess because Unearth is such an underutilized mechanic in red, overwhelmingly my red decks don't utilize Unearth. So
right,
like I couldn't find a good homes for it.
Yeah.
6 is a lot for an Unearth for a creature you only get to use once. But I mean, 5 is a lot for an attack. So like it's kind of like a lava axe from your graveyard without spending a card. So that's nice.
That's true. Good point.
Yeah.
All right, Jules, what do you got for us?
Well, I'm pretty hot on Unearth as well. I think I'm going to cheat, if you don't mind, and do a little a pseudo cycle here.
Never mind at all.
these are the scrap work creatures, I suppose. There's the cohort, the rager, and the mutt. Cohort and rager are both 4 mana. Mutt is 2 mana. These are all artifact creatures, and they all have some ETB, and then they have unearth for various amounts. The cohort's going to give us a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token, unearths for 2 and a white. The rager is going to draw us a card, lose a life, unearths for 3 and a black. And then the mutt is going to allow us to discard a card, and if we do, draw a card, and that unearths for 1 and a red. I think all of these abilities are just great ETBs, and the fact that we just get a rebate on them at minimum is a great pickup for any deck that can play these Mardu colors. I was informed by Dave that there's technically like a blue one as well, which is the where is it? The Combat Courier, which is 1 mana 1/1. You can pay 2 to sacrifice it, draw a card, so it's basically a clue. And then that one there's for a single blue, which I think is also a great pickup as well.
Yeah, I just noticed that all these, including the Combat Courier, they unearth for the same amount of mana as their mana value, except for the white one. It's actually 1 cheaper to unearth it than it is to cast it. Interesting. But that's all I got. I like them. Other than that, I think they're really cool. I think they got some synergies. They're pretty utilitarian. Like, you'll get your use out of them. They're going to play, I think they're actually going to play a little stronger than they appear. Like, if you're just to look at them, you're like, okay, let's set mechanic, unearth. These are going to be great and limited. Every deck's going to want them. They're easy to cast, whatever. But I think they'll show up in some PDH decks just for that utility aspect of them. They're cheap. The decent ETBs, you can sacrifice them to your deadly disputes or what have you, or reckless abandon, that sort of thing. Get them back and do it all over again. So I'm a big fan.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I might actually like them a little more than I should, but I think they're pretty good.
I'll join you there. Nothing flashy, but definitely going to jam them in some decks.
Yep, just good old magic. What do you think, Dave?
Of these, I am especially enamored of the Scrapwork cohort. The 3/1 that gives you the white one, 3/1 soldier creature token when it ETBs. That's the one I think is far and away the best of them, because maybe not best, maybe the one I'm most interested, because it's the white one. White doesn't have unearth really. Blue
Good
barely
call,
does,
yeah.
and it's bad. But now we have a white one, and that's going to change a couple things. I very recently built a deck with Amber and Veteran Soldier that just wants to discard its entire hand every single turn, and being able to play this from the graveyard to create even more bodies is colossal. I think this is going to be a massive card in that deck, and I'm excited to try it out. The other thing I'm really excited to do with this is to put it into Mist Meadow Witch.
Okay.
Because if you flicker something that has been unearthed, it comes back unearthed.
Just earth.
Yeah, it's a new instance of the creature.
Yeah. Like, so you can unearth it from your graveyard, get your token, get your attack, flicker it with Mist Meadow Witch, or with like Soul Herder, or if you're playing the whatever OG, the Exquisite Blade, like whatever blue-white flicker deck you're playing, you can flicker this thing after it has been unearthed to get a second soldier and to keep the original until it dies again and gets sent to your graveyard, from which you can unearth it again and then flicker it again. Like, as long as you have the mana, like, this thing will never stop being a problem for your opponents that just generate soldiers constantly.
Yeah,
and, like,
for sure.
The other things, like in Olka, there's plenty of white creatures that make a creature on ETB with them, and like that's not a problem. Like, can always kill those things. Like, if you're playing against Olka and those things become a problem, you just wait for someone to target it with a flicker, and then you go Lightning Bolt in response, Doomblade in response, and it stops being a problem. It goes away forever. This thing never goes away. Like, can't Lightning Bolt it. You're just gonna like, okay, I'll put it in my graveyard.
And get it back.
Right? Like,
yeah.
I'm really excited about that from the white one.
Yeah.
Black one I think is gonna I have a deck that's very focused on unearth that's black. The black one's gonna see some play in that deck. The red one is gonna see play in a handful of my decks that are really, really into looting. But I'm most excited about the white one. I think the white one is the most groundbreaking of these.
Yeah, I like it.
I really like that too.
It's got higher power than the others, cheaper unearth, all that good stuff.
Heck yeah. Dave, you want to give us another one?
We're back to me. Yeah, I know how to count.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about Pendragon Strongbull.
Ooh,
What a name.
that is
Right.
quite the name. I love it.
It's like a strongman, but it's a bull instead.
Okay.
This is a 3-mana 2/3 red Minotaur with the ability 1, sacrifice an artifact. It gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and it deals 1 damage to each opponent.
Yeah.
This is vaguely makeshift munitions-ish
On a body.
on a body. And makeshift munitions gives you a lot more flexibility than this thing does. Makeshift munitions doesn't die to a lightning bolt, which is pretty key. It
Yeah.
lets you sacrifice artifacts or creatures, and it deals that 1 damage anywhere you want. But, so like, I still think makeshift munitions is the better card, far and away. But the Strongbull, like, some of my decks run makeshift munitions pretty much exclusively so that I can sacrifice artifacts and send that damage to someone's face.
Mm-hmm.
And if that is my goal, this Strongbull is 3 times better because it goes to everyone's face.
Yeah.
This guy's going to be a powerhouse in very specific decks, like Jury, like Heiko. Might see some play in Kalain. It's going to be making a lot of treasures.
Put a tandem lookout on it and you're going to town.
Oh, gross. Yep, you can do that.
Now you're speaking my language.
Yep.
Put a
Snake Umbra.
Snake.
Ophidians, all that stuff.
Now I'm wondering if you make this guy into a pirate, does he just go infinite with Malcolm?
Oh my god.
No. The treasure you sacrifice the treasure for the mana. You can't also sacrifice. No, he does.
Something's happening here, yeah.
You get 3 treasures, and you can sacrifice one of them for the mana and one of them to activate to pay the cost back.
You'll still have 1 left over, so yeah, you'll have infinite damage and infinite treasures.
It's not quite infinite. It ends when all 3 players are dead.
Well, yeah, that's true.
It's only
that's true.
30 mana. It doesn't keep going. But yeah.
Yeah, you don't make infinite and then kill him. Yeah,
if you can turn this guy into a pirate, Malcolm.
There's like 1 mana spells in blue that'll do that, and there's a spell in red in Modern Horizons that'll do that.
I hadn't considered that angle at all until you
Holy
said
crap.
Tandem Lookout. But now, Pendragon Strongbull. Put him
That's it. Best card in the set.
Put him in a Malcolm deck, make him a pirate.
Holy crap. Yep.
I love that.
That's cute.
That is cute. Well, we broke it. You heard it here first.
It's just that easy.
Yep, just that easy. All right, what else you got for the Minotaur?
Oh, no, that's it.
That wraps up your Minotaur talk.
I'm done talking about the cow.
All right, well, I got 2 Mishras in a row, so my next one is going to be Mishra's Onslaught. I am a big fan of this instant. It is 3 in a red, and you get to choose one. You create 2 colorless, or 2 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature tokens, or creatures you control get +2/+0 until the end of turn. Granted, it's semi-modal, but it's clean and simple. You get 2 artifact creature tokens, or pump your whole board. That's it. I like it. I like combat tricks. It's an instant, so literally it can be a combat trick, whether you need blockers, whether you're on the offensive, all that good stuff. So I'm a fan. I like it. And there's we got plenty of strategies that you'll get paid off for just casting spells in general. You could put this in your Iconoclast deck and make more creatures as you pump your whole board, that sort of thing. So it plays into a lot of different strategies, tokens, artifacts, go wide, aggro, whatever you want. And I'm a fan of it. I was always a fan of like Dynacharge and Burn Bright and all those other ones. So it just stands to reason that I like this one too. Pretty straightforward. You like it, Jules? What do you think of the Onslaught?
I like it. I agree. I think modality is something that is, if you want to get my attention, you just make a card modal.
Right.
And now all of a sudden I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I think, like you said, it functions on the front half of the game, on the back half of the game, right? When you need to just build your board up or you just need to swing in. And something that I've been coming around to a lot recently are just these kind of generic, everything at +2/+0 or +2/+1 or, +2/+2 or whatever. Just these kind of swarming style effects. I feel like they're a lot more potent than I originally gave them credit for.
Yeah, they can be. They can really swing a game. What do you think, Dave? Do you want to make some tokens or do you want to pump your whole board?
I'm really torn on this card because I want to do both of those things, but I want them to be cheaper.
Yeah, the 4 mana makes me feel like I should be able to do both, but
right, like the going rate for 2 1/1 bodies in red is 2 mana. That's your Krenko's Command, that's your Dragon Fodder, that's your Mog War Marshal. That's all. It should be 2 bodies is 2 mana in red.
Yep.
And the going rate for a +2/+0 combat trick buff is 3. That's your Trumpet Blast. That's your Ambitious Assault, that's your
Mhm.
pack attack. Pack attack is, I think, even better than that. Pack attack is
I
3
think so,
mana
too.
for potentially +3 power and draw a card. I probably shouldn't be making that comparison. And like, I have a lot of red decks that want to make a lot of tokens and then they want to buff them. I just don't know if I want 4 mana for the modality on it. Like,
That's
I feel
a lot.
like
That's a lot.
I was looking at putting this into my League Guildmage deck, which uses spells to make tokens,
Mhm.
and it uses spells to buff those tokens. And I'm looking at casting this and then copying it would be 9 mana. And like, do I want to replace a Trumpet Blast with this?
I don't think so. I don't
Yeah,
think it's that good.
It's a tough call. I need to play around with it. I need to do some experiments. I need to
Yeah.
see whether or not the modality is worth the mana price tag that it comes attached to it. I
Yeah,
love the idea of it.
If this was a sorcery instead of an instant, it wouldn't even be in the show.
I think if it was a sorcery, it would cost 3 mana, and then I would windmill slam it into these decks.
Huh.
Because I
Interesting.
don't care about surprise tokens, and I don't care about
Okay.
surprise trumpet blasts.
That makes sense.
I just want it to be cheaper. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, this card is a
That's
3
fair.
mana sorcery. I would be super enthusiastic about, but as a 4 mana instant, I'm very like lukewarm on it.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Next up, what do you got for us?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I think Brad's pick and my pick here, which is a third Mishra in a row, and also all about the modality. I think they kind of fall into a similar sort of trap where they're not anything that, like, when you look at them, your eyes aren't going to pop out of your head, right? But I'd like to believe that 90% of cards deserve and can find a home, and I think these are just cards that should be brought up just in case people do want to include them.
Yeah. I agree. It's a good way to put it.
Yeah, so mine is Mishra's Domination. It's 1 in red for an enchantment aura. You enchant a creature. As long as you control the enchanted creature, it gets +2/+2. Otherwise, it can't block. So, like I said, modality is huge. On this one, obviously, we can just buff a creature up, whether we just need to win combat against whoever's playing the mono green deck. It's going to trigger prowess and prowess adjacent effects, like the Iconoclast. But I think that the underrated version of this is that you can just put this on a creature and they can't block. So whether that's a Death Toucher that you just can't remove, whether that's a 7/7 that you can't attack past,
A Crusher,
or maybe exactly, or kind of, I guess, Magical Christmas Land. Someone has 1 blocker or just enough blockers. If you can put this on something and then swing in for lethal, obviously worth it.
Yeah, if you've got a menace creature and they have 2 blockers, well, you put this on 1 and now they have no blockers.
Yeah, especially if you have anything that triggers on dealing combat damage.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the uses for this are a lot more than people might initially think. They're just all minor quality of life improvements as to something that's
exactly.
Be a game warping. Yeah. Dave, can I convince you on this one, or are we a little skeptical?
No, I really like this card. Like, I don't think it's going to make it into a ton of decks, but I do think it has a home in some, and I think it's very interesting.
Yeah.
I think that Magic has been toying with this idea of like very modal enchantments, like good for you, bad for someone else, for a long time, with cards like Bonds of Faith, and like there's one I was just trying to look up. I think the first time they did it was Alliances. There's a black or
well, there's like Immolation too that gives +2/-2.
Phyrexian Boon, that's what it's called. So like Bonds of Faith will either give the buff or give the debuff based on whether or not the creature is a human. And Phyrexian Boon will either give the buff or the debuff depending on whether the creature is black. I love that Wizards has sort of like gone one step in the simpler direction and just been like, if it's yours, if it's not yours. Like, you don't have to worry about like,
Right.
I have to play with a bunch of humans now, or like, what if my opponent is playing black? Then I can't use this for removal. Like, no.
Yeah.
It's just, is it yours? Is it someone else's? Like, I think that's the cleanest way to do these transitions on these like buff or debuff auras. And I like them as cards. I think they're super cool. I like this one especially. I like Sluggishness. I like Maniacal Rage. This is both of those in one card. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a neat design space for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got for us, Dave?
Yeah, let me find out. I was switching tabs. I was over on Scryfall, so I could try to find Phyrexian Boon.
Going deep.
Yeah, let's move. I've done black, blue, red. Let's move on to green. I want to out a card called Wasteful Harvest. Wasteful Harvest is a 3 mana green instant that says mill 5 cards. you may put a permanent card from among them into your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm excited. I love self-mill decks. I love these
5
cards.
is a lot, too.
5 is not a small number. Instant speed is not irrelevant here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just any permanent card, which I think just dumpsters all of the rest of these. All of these, the other ones say like, it has to be a creature or it has to be a land.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them will be like, we'll give you some options. It can be a creature or a land.
Right.
But like, you're always going to mill Pestilence, and you're never going to get Pestilence back. And that always feels bad. Like, this thing is like, I want you to have a Pestilence. And like, that's perfect.
I'll help you find it.
Because I want to have Pestilence, and this thing wants me to have Pestilence, and it's just like all the pieces are coming together.
It does. It's basically what the flavor text says. I want Dave to have Pestilence.
Basically, yeah. So yeah, I think this is just like a better Grizzly Salvage that's less color restricted.
Well, that's a good one. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I've always loved Grizzly Salvage, so I'm into this as well.
Nice. I'm with you. I could parrot everything you said because I'm all about it. That 5 is a lot. Instant speed is great, and like you said, a lot of the problems with these self-mill cards is it's like you said, it's get target creature back or whatever. It's not just get anything back that stays on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
Go for it at instant speed. That's fine. So I'm a big fan. Are you a big Miller, Jules?
I 100% agree with everything that's said. We've been talking about modality. This might as well say mill 5 and then pick one. You may put a creature, or you may put an artifact, or you may put a
right.
yada yada yada.
Pick one.
So yeah, I agree. If you want to be milling things, I think this is the best option. This is going to be auto include for any sort of Golgari deck, I would say.
Yep, I'm with you.
And I love that it goes in the non-Golgari decks as well. Like I have a couple Gruul decks that would murder to be able to run Grizzly Salvage, and now they can.
Okay.
And that feels really good.
That's a good point.
True.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about, like, I liked your comparison to Grizzly Salvage, but I hadn't thought about Grizzly Salvage being specifically Golgari colored. You know what I'm saying? Where this is monocolored. Yeah. That's huge too.
Yeah. Like, go ahead.
I was going to say, now that you're saying that, something Gruul has been doing recently is caring about like lands in graveyards, number of lands in graveyards and stuff.
Yes.
And this is a way for you to, dump a bunch of lands in the graveyard, but also draw a card.
Yep.
That's exactly the Gruul deck that I want this for. It's I have
100%.
a Gruul Guildmage deck that puts a lot of effort into sacrificing lands, milling lands, discarding lands, and just having a lot of lands in the graveyard. Like Ruination Rider also loves this card.
Mm-hmm.
But like,
yeah, that was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, I've been wanting to have Grizzly Salvage in not black for a long time,
right.
and like now we have it, and I'm overjoyed.
All right. But yes, I agree. I like it a lot. All right, let me move on to another one of my comments. It's a Dwarf Wizard. We have Dwarven Forge Chanter for a generic and a red to get a 1/3 with prowess. Excellent. One of my favorite keywords ever. But it also has Ward of pay 2 life. I put this on here because I love prowess. I love Ward. I think it's an excellent improvement upon hexproof. I love it as a mechanic. I think the Forge Chanter is going to have a much bigger impact in 60-card formats, but I'm not opposed to putting this in my 100-card decks either. It's cheap, it's got a decent butt, and it's got prowess, so it's not going to take much to get it through. And if they want to kill it, that Lightning Bolt's going to cost a spell and 2 life, which that can head up, if you're already playing a mono-red burn deck, or if this is in your Is It burn deck, that Ward of paying 2 life to your opponent, that's going to add up real quick, and they're going to think about it. They might have to think about it twice before they actually decide to do something about it. Because it's not just Ward of 2 life and they can sit there and do nothing. It's going to be Ward of 2 life and then all your burn spells coming at their face.
Yeah,
so
precisely.
It adds up real quick.
And I mean,
but yeah, I'm not sure it'll have a huge effect in PDH. I'm a big fan of it. I love monocolored prowess creatures.
You also have to be really careful about that Lightning Bolt, because if you are spending your Lightning Bolt and 2 life to try and murk this guy, and your opponent responds with Gut Shot, then he survives the Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, you just wasted your Lightning Bolt and 2 life.
Right.
Yeah, it's dangerous. I think it's a little more dangerous than people are giving it credit for, but again, I don't know how good small prowess creatures are in PDH, so we'll just have to see.
I love that they gave us this card like right after they gave us Balmor Battle Captain,
Mm-hmm.
Battle mage, whatever the is it, like everyone has prowess and also trample bird
Oh,
is.
yeah, Balmor. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Balmor, yeah, that guy. Like, this is just a slam dunk in Balmor.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
If you love math and counting, I don't know who would be into that, but
Yeah, I don't know
You
who
lost
would
me there.
make that their profession.
yeah, if that's you, keeping
Seek help.
track of this guy and Balmor at the same time. It's going to be
Right.
entertaining.
All right, Jules, you went from Mishra to looks like you're going to Urza.
Yeah, we'll go to Urza. I will say, I think, I want to say, I feel like Mishra always gets the short end of the stick,
I do too.
but it is what it is. So we've got Urza's rebuff. Once again, 1 blue counter target spell is not something that I ever particularly want to do, but like I said, this also has the words choose one, and there's a second bullet point that says tap up to 2 target creatures. So now I'm in.
Yep.
I don't want to play a cancel in my deck, but it counters spells just like counterspell does. So it is what it is. And tapping 2 creatures is huge just for blanking a big attack or allowing us to get a little bit more aggressive, whether that's just getting in for lethal or triggering things that trigger on combat damage. So I think this is a perfectly spine spell to try and include. And once again, the modality is going to be key.
Yeah, like you can kind of see the deck they're trying to build here, like with that enchantment that makes a creature not be able to block, and then we got prowess creatures, and then we got blue cards that tap creatures. Like they want you to swing in big with colors, and I'm okay with that.
The seal of approval.
Yep. What do you think, Dave? Are you going to be canceling fools or tapping creatures?
I really like Mishra's Onslaught for exactly the reason Julian mentioned, just that it could be a counterspell or it could be something else. I think that makes it a powerhouse in things like Aethersworn Sphinx, which want to have counterspells in their hand but do not want to cascade into counterspells.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, it's like you find the villain's lair, where that modality just goes tremendous distance in the right deck.
Yeah.
Flavorfully, I cannot get over the jump from Mishra's Onslaught is your modal, like create 2 bodies or make your board huge, to Urza's, what is it? Urza's rebuff. Yeah, so Mishra attacks with a bunch of bodies that are big, and Urza's like, no,
I tap them.
you can tap the 2 bodies that Mishra's Onslaught creates, or you can counterspell the big buff that they get. Like,
yep.
Tell me who your favorite is, Wizards, without telling me who your favorite is.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
and they're literally named that way too. Like,
yeah,
Mishra's Onslaught versus Urza's rebuff. Like, I don't know.
And the flavor text feeds into it also. Like Mishra's Onslaught is Mishra being all cocky about it. Like Urza underestimated my strength yet again, and then Urza's response is like, and again, my brother is overconfident and impulsive. Like,
yep.
Yeah.
God.
Love it. Beautiful.
The flavor's beautiful, but it hurts just a little bit.
It hurts.
A little bit.
It does hurt.
I'm on the Mishra train. All right, Alk, what do you got for us?
I'm going to very briefly mention a card called Tomakul Honor Guard.
All right.
This is a 2-mana green 3/1 with Ward 2.
Cool.
And that's it. That's the whole card. Like, it's not very exciting. It's a very simple card. But I wanted to mention it because early this year, we got Jewel Thief, which is the 3-mana 3/3 Vigilance Trample, create a treasure, which is just berserk.
Yeah.
In terms of the stat line on this at common is nuts. And now we're going from that into the 2-mana 3/1 with Ward. Like, you can just watch in real time as Wizards just pushes the power level on these cards, and I'm kind of here for it. Like,
we can see it happening.
Yeah, I want to see what they can come up with.
Yep,
that's all I got for the Tomakul Honor Guard.
Yeah, you're good. I don't have a lot for my next one either, but I'm just kind of a fan of it because we don't often get this wordage, this verbiage at common. It is Razed to the Ground for 2 generic and a red. It's a sorcery that says destroy target artifact. If its mana value is 1 or less, you draw a card. But what I love about it is it says this spell can't be countered. That feel much like, I already forgot which one it was, but much like the cards I talked about earlier, I feel like this is going to play a lot bigger than it reads. Like, if you're looking at it, you're like, okay, fine, whatever. Probably great and limited, maybe good and standard. But I feel like it's actually going to have an impact in PDH because we have some meaningful artifacts. not just in artifacts, but artifact creatures as well. We got some artifact creatures that are also commanders that can be a problem. And those commanders just happen to be in blue that are happy to counter your spell. But this one doesn't let them. So it's very specific. You almost have to know what you're going to be playing against. You almost have to metagame your pod to put this in there because it's not a lot of value by itself. But I think it is a lot stronger than the rules text would imply. So that's all I got on that one.
I think a good comparison might be Heated Debate, which is the 3 mana 4 damage instant that also can't be countered.
Yep.
And
I completely forgot about that one.
Yeah. I love that it is powerful removal that's going to push through blue counterspells. I also love, like, Heated Debate was printed in the same set that gave us Ward for the first time.
Yes.
And now we're getting back to a bunch of stuff that has Ward, and we have a new destruction spell that can't be countered, and that interacts in really cool ways with Ward. So I really like that. I think it's going to be important in the limited.
Yeah, for sure.
We have, much like Heated Debate, I think it's going to be, time will tell how impactful this is on the PDH meta. But,
right. And that probably doesn't bode well for me because I completely forgot Heated Debate even existed.
Yeah, I mean, well, Heated Debate exists and is a very powerful card in the competitive scene. Like, people play it a lot because it mercs blue commanders all day long, every day. It's fantastic. So, like, yeah, having something else that can't be countered is solid. I think that's solid. I don't know if there are enough artifact threats that it's going to see like universal play on the competitive scene.
Right. This would be very much one like I was saying, if you knew what your pod was playing, or you happen to get an event going at the LGS, that sort of thing. So
yeah, I'm delighted that we have that text on More Commons now. I think it's very cool text.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jules, what do you got for us?
I think I only have one more card that I want to speak more at length about.
Yep.
And that's the Goblin Firebomb.
Sounds great.
So, yeah, it sounds like a great time. So this is going to be a 1-mana artifact. It's got flash, and then for the low price of 7 generic mana, tapping it and sacrificing it, you can destroy target permanent. Now, this isn't I was literally just about to say this isn't the most flashiest card, but it actually has flash, so I guess I'll take that back.
Okay.
This isn't the most earth-shattering card, but I think this is a big pickup because in the Warhammer 40k decks, we got a reprint of Unstable Obelisk at common, which is a 3-mana tap for any color. I forget if it's tap for any color or tap for colors, and then the 7-mana tap it, sack it, destroy target permanent. This is huge for certain colors that just can't deal with certain permanents.
Yeah.
There's a few colors that namely usually just can't deal with enchantments, can't, destroy artifacts, and having these generic answers for stuff like that, I think is really important. Part of my mind is thinking CPDH, where something like Oubliette is kind of a menace on the format, so you need to have a way out to that. I don't think that's as rampant and an issue in the larger PDH meta, but still, if you are in your mono black deck, it'd be nice to have a way to deal with maybe something that the Satyr Enchanter is playing, or any sort of big auras. So just having these kind of catch-all options that, you're going to have to invest a lot of mana in them, but I would prefer to have those options, and in this case now a second option past Unstable Obelisk, other than just having to be like, well, you drew the one card that I cannot touch, so I guess I'm just going to sit here by myself,
Right, exactly. And it does help now that, we keep repeating it, but your Power Stones help you pay for it. So this may actually only cost you tapping 4 lands. So
true.
Same true with the Obelisk, but
yeah. Also, obviously, this is an artifact. There are artifact synergies. This is a non-creature spell. There are creature spell synergies. It has flash.
Yeah, flash is huge at 1 mana. That's huge. Yeah, I think.
So yeah, so it's got utility, and I just like having these kind of catch-all answers.
Yep, same here.
I'm really excited about it in flash because that's what makes it a strict upgrade to Universal Solvent. And Universal Solvent is kind of too expensive for most of my decks, but there's a couple decks that do run it, and I'm just going to put in the Firebomb instead. I'm delighted for this upgrade.
Yep.
Especially in Heiko. Heiko needs to have these answers because Heiko's entire deck gets completely turned off by Honored Heirloom. So you need to have lots of ways to kill Honored Heirloom. And you're in red, so there's a handful, but like having one that's this flexible that can kill anything is great, and that it has flash means that if it ends up in your graveyard because you milled it or looted it or whatever, Heiko does a lot of that, you can attack with Heiko, target the firebomb, and that lets you cast and use the firebomb in the middle of combat.
Oh my god!
So if someone
that's
tries to get
wild.
real
That is
cheeky and
wild.
block your Heiko, you can be like, "Oh, bad move, man!" like kill
Sorry
your
for ya.
blocker. Like Heiko has trample, you take the damage anyway. Like maybe next time don't do that. Like, so
Think
you
twice,
can,
buddy.
yeah. So I'm really excited about this. In general, as a strict upgrade over Universal Solvent, and in particular for Heiko because it has flash.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's a 6 energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really good. All right, Dave, you got some commons left for us? I feel like we're running out.
Yeah, there's 2 more that I want to talk about together because they're
Sure.
very similar cards, and then there's one
Absolutely.
more after that. I want to talk about Coastal Bulwark for 2 reasons. The first reason is its collector's number is really bizarre.
Yeah, I saw that in the show notes, but I have not looked further.
So what they did a new thing with this set where instead of organizing cards by color, they're now organizing cards through the set by color identity.
Mhm.
So like the scrapwork cycle that we talked about before. These are colorless cards that all have like colored activated abilities on them.
Mhm.
They're all sorted into the set by their color identity, I think. And
Interesting.
Coastal Bulwark is a colorless card whose color identity is also colorless, but it includes the word island in its text, so it got sorted in with the blue cards. Like its collector's number is 76. It's in
Yeah, I
the
see
blue
that.
section. It's not at the end with the artifacts.
Yeah,
So I
it's
think
not
this
the
is super
260s, 270s. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it should be at the end of the set, both by color and by color identity, but it's in with the it has the word island. Anyway, what the card does is it is a 2-mana 1/3 defender. It gets +2/+0 if you control an island. So in a blue deck, it's a 3/3 defender
For 2 mana, not
for
bad.
2 mana. Not bad at all.
Not bad.
For what?
I agreed, not bad.
For 2 and tap it, you can surveil 1. So if you're in a deck that wants to fill its graveyard, if you're in a deck that wants defense against early beatings, if you want something to do with your mana at the end of a turn cycle because you were holding up for counterspells, if you want 3/3 blockers for only 2 mana, like I think this card has legs on it. I am really
Or if you're
excited
playing
about this.
Demir Spybug.
If you're playing Demir Spybug, this is a repeatable source of surveil.
Yeah.
And speaking of repeatable sources of surveil, the other card I want to
Nice
mention
segue.
briefly here is Tokasia's Dig Site is a land, comes into play untapped, taps for colorless, and for 3 and tap it, you can surveil 1. So on the subject of if you're playing a deck that is going to keep mana up for interaction through a turn cycle and then need something to do with that at the end of a turn cycle where you didn't spend your interaction, or if you're playing a deck that can run out of gas and needs something to do with its mana late game so that you're not dead drawing, this card is like a free include. It takes a land slot. It doesn't even come into play tapped. The only thing you lose from this is colored mana. If you're in a 5-color deck, it's probably not worth it. If you're in
Yeah,
a
you
1 or
probably don't wanna
2-color
run it.
deck, just cut a basic for Tokasia's Dig Site and just have something to do with your mana late game. This card
Honestly, in a 2-color deck, I'd probably cut Ash Barrens or something.
is Ash Barrens.
I had no problem with that.
Ash Barrens is a great card, and it is somehow also an easy cut for Tokasia's Dig Site.
Yeah.
If you're worried about having too many colorless lands in your deck,
Yep.
Yeah, this is as close as we get to like Universal. I think this is probably approaching Bonder's Ornament level. Most decks should have this in them.
It's pretty darn close. Yeah, I agree. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree as well.
All right, let me hit my last comment here, and then we can circle back around. You said you got one more, Dave?
I have one more after this.
Okay, yep. Let me hit my last one here. It is one I'm actually more excited about the longer I've been staring at it in the show notes, and that is Dredging Claw. I'm not usually hyped up about equipment, but this one kind of got me. It's 2 mana for an equipment, and equipped creature gets +1/+0 and has menace. And whenever a creature enters the battlefield from your graveyard, you can attach Dredging Claw to it, and its normal equip cost is a colorless and a black. So I am a huge fan. I think we had some in Eldraine. I'm a huge fan of equipment that auto-attaches, but it's normally like when this equipment enters the battlefield, attach it to a non-human you control or what have you. This is awesome because you can if you had the mana to do it or the spells or what have you, you can repeatedly do it in the same turn if you needed to. If you got unearth one creature and then that creature died for some reason, and you unearth another one, you can attach it again. It's not an ETB ability of the equipment itself. It's an ability of the creatures entering your graveyard. So I'm a big fan of that. And just the more and more I play PDH, the more and more I have really come to appreciate Menace and how powerful it actually is. It is not much of a player at all in 60-card formats, at least not in Pauper. But in PDH, it can win you games. That one keyword alone can win you games. I've seen it happen. I've lost to it, so I know it's possible. So I like that the equipment provides that. And yeah, I'm just a big fan of it here. It'll play. This is another one that should have been around for our Halloween episode, because this would have played nicely with Breathless Knight that was in my deck. If you want to put it in a Rakdos build, you can put it on Champion of the Flame, give him Menace and make him gigantic, just all that sort of thing. So I don't know. I'm a big fan of it. I don't usually get hyped up for equipment, but I am definitely going to include a lot of these, probably where they don't belong at first until I figure out where they actually go, but I'm definitely going to play the heck out of it. What do you think, Jules? Do you like this equipment?
I wasn't down on it, but I just literally didn't know the card existed, but you've kind of sold me on this. I think something that we can both agree on is that this probably doesn't belong, but we will both put it in the Hero of the Dunes.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, to be fair, you reanimate something with the Hero of the Dunes, the Dredging Claw clips to it. Now, between this and the Hero, it is getting +2/+0 and Menace. I mean, you're taking
crazy.
two things with you, or you're punching for a reasonable amount of damage.
Yeah, I think that's real good.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think, Dave?
I absolutely love this card. I love unearthing things. Unearthing is one of my favorite abilities, and one of the things I love about Unearth is when you unearth a chonker like a 4/4, like you're gonna send it at someone once. You want it to be big. You want that one swing to be impactful, because it only happens once and then this creature's gone.
Right.
But you don't want to spend mana to equip something to it, because it's just going to fall off when the creature dies at end of turn. So this thing equipping for free to unearthed guys is fantastic. This is great design space. And it gives Menace, which is exactly the keyword I want. Like when I'm getting attacked by an unearthed thing, I want to be making the decision, this creature is definitely going to die no matter what. I'll probably just eat the damage. Like, I don't want to sacrifice a creature to try and kill it, like, because it's going to die anyway. I'll just take the damage. Now this thing makes the decision be like, if you want to stop it, you have to sacrifice 2 of your creatures to this thing that's going to die anyway. And so that makes chump blocking a lot more complex. This is exactly the equipment that I wanted for unearthed creatures and unearthed cards. And
yes, absolutely.
I don't have a lot of unearthed decks, but I have a couple decks that really go hard on this unearthed thing, and they're going to love this card. I'm excited about it.
I don't know that I've ever been this hyped up about a piece of equipment. Like I've loved some before, like just for flavor or whatever. But this one actually seems good to me in the right setting, obviously. So cool. But yeah, that wraps up my commons. I think, Dave, you got one left. What do you got for us?
I have exactly one card left that I want to talk about, because any set discussion that does not include this card is fundamentally lacking.
Yeah, you shouldn't listen to them.
Not what I meant, but yeah. Whoops. Anyway, gentlemen, a week ago, the biggest creature in our entire format was an 8-mana 9/9 called Ancient Brontodon, followed very closely by an 8-mana 8/9 with Trample called Eldrazi Devastinator. That is no longer true.
What?
As of this set release, we have a 10-mana 10/10 Reach Trample. And it has stolen my heart. I love this card. It's just a thick, fat slab of beef. It has another ability as well, though. Let's talk about this.
Okay.
This has the prototype ability, which is that thing where you can pay an alternate cost, and it'll come into play with like a smaller stat line. It still has Reach and Trample, but if you don't have the 10 mana to spend on your 10/10 Reach Trampler, you could spend 5 mana, 3 and 2 green, to get a 3/5 Reach Trample. There's not a lot of flicker in green,
Right.
but if you can flicker this guy, you can cast him in his 3/5 mode for 5 mana and then flicker him and he will become a 10/10.
So for, even if you had to use Ghostly Flicker, so for an 8 mana investment, you're getting a 10/10 Reach Trample.
My plan is not to use Ghostly Flicker. My plan is
Right.
to use Lagrella so that I get an
Gross.
8 mana 12.
That is disgusting. And I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this idiot. It's the biggest and dumbest of all of the big dumb idiots we have, and I am deeply enamored of it.
Yeah, and what's cool is that's not, we have other prototypes that you could put in there too, probably.
Yes,
This is by far the beefiest.
it is the chonkiest of the chonkers.
This is where the beef went.
Yeah. This goes in the Cradle Clear Cutter for sure as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Probably goes in Battery Bearer as well. Jeez.
It
Oh,
sure
I guess
does.
it could. Yeah, you got all the mana dorks and power stones you want. Just feed them right in. Oh
If
yeah,
you-
the clear cutter will pay for that like in a turn. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm very excited about Rust Goliath, and that's the card I want to leave you all with. Rust
I
Goliath.
think that is the perfect card to leave everyone with. It's beautiful. Whew.
Perfect.
All right, well we got through it. I got through another set review. What do you think?
Yeah.
Overall, I'm pretty excited for it. Not, as we said at the top of the show, not super powerful. There's not anything broken, but there seems to be a lot of fun. What do you think, Jules? You gonna have fun with the bros?
I 100% agree. Always looking to have fun with the bros, and like you said, since there's not anything that's super powerful, it means that there's nothing that I need to like auto include in all my decks. I have a ton of options from this set, and a ton of options across a ton of different colors and a ton of different strategies.
Yeah, and I like that, like Dave said, 2 hours ago, that we're not getting sets that completely flip the format over. We didn't get, oh my god, we got 20 new commanders that everyone's going to be playing with now. Like, we got to go build new decks. Like, we got a handful, and that's fine, and that's good. And that's how it should be, honestly.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think, Dave? Your overall impressions, are they pretty high on the set?
I like the set. I think the impression that I'm feeling the most right now is I like splitting the set review with House of Commons because we're at about the 2 hour mark for our recording, and we're wrapping up, which is better than being at the 3 hour mark for
That is,
So,
it's much better.
Yeah, I think this went really well. I love talking to Jules. I'm really excited to listen to their podcast. I haven't heard it yet, but I think that the splitting plan is the right maneuver. We're gonna have to talk to these guys again.
Yep. And one thing I am feeling good about the set is maybe I'm missing something, but I was really concerned. I know a lot of people were concerned that the Brothers of War being an artifact set, it was just going to pump more broken artifacts into 60 card Pauper. And I don't think that it did that, unless I'm missing something, but I don't think it did that. So that's a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
Whew. I think that's it. I think we're just going to cover a few more things before we wrap it up for the week. But in the meantime, if you want any more Pauper Commander talk, have any questions about the format, set reviews, anything like that, you can email the show at thepdhpod@gmail.com. You can head on over to the PDH Homebase's website. You'll find their Discord server there. You can find me on Twitter at Pauper_B. Jules, I know you're on Twitter. Where can they find you?
They can find me at Hex_Jules over on Twitter.
Perfect.
As well as interact with me through the Hexdrinkers account itself.
Yep. And then when Liam comes back, you can find him on Twitter too at Pauper Command. And then you can find Dave as Alcadron just about anywhere else PDH is being talked about. All these links, everything will be down in the show notes for you. And then on top of Twitter, where else can the fine folks find you, Jules, and the Hexdrinkers as a whole?
So you can hit up our email, hexdrinkers@gmail.com. We have a website, hexdrinkers.com. I'm active in a couple different of the PDH servers, PDH Homebase, tryhards, really wherever PDH content can be found. I'd like to say that I'm there at least in some capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you guys have I don't know if a lot of listeners know, but you guys have the Hexdrinkers podcast as well as the House of Commons podcast.
Yes, the House of Commons is our competitive Pauper EDH undertaking. And then if you like 60 card formats as well as mostly EDH content, the Hexdrinkers as a whole is that's what we do with all four of the guys.
Yep. It's all good stuff. So check him out. Check it all out. Hit him up on Twitter, and they're all good dudes. Even Chev's a good dude. I'll give him that.
Even Chev, he has his moments.
Yeah, he has his moments, but overall, he's a good dude. But all right. As episode 23 of the PDH Pod comes to a close, we want to give a big thanks to MTG Brad again for letting us use their original music for the show. And from everyone in here to everyone out there, brew a deck, go pick a fight with your bro, and we'll see you in about a week. Peace.
Cheers.
Peace.
I brought Pauper decks to the party.